Campbell, and I'm an 8th grader in the Explorers crew. Today I will be presenting to you a piece entitled Harold Hardrada's Last Stand. This piece, although I'm presenting to you it as a speech, it was originally a historical fiction narrative that I wrote for our Viking expedition. This piece centers around Harold Hardrada, who is considered to be the last great Viking king, and as he sees his kingdom crumbling down from beneath him in the Battle of 1066, where he will eventually meet his end. Please enjoy. Harold woke up. A cold breeze drifted through the longhouse, and the foul smell of the animal pens assaulted the senses. He got up, stretched his arms, and walked outside. He examined his surroundings. This was no place for a king. He meandered back inside the longhouse where his wives were preparing breakfast, comprised of porridge and stale bread. He spat and reached for his mead. When breakfast was served, he chowed down, hungry as could be. After breakfast, Harold dressed himself, for although he could not live extravagantly, he would still dress like a king. Harold grabbed his axe and sword off the wall and headed out onto the battlefield. The battle camp was a sight to behold. The Vikings had set up camp around the city of London and had been tasked with protecting it. The camp itself was around the longhouse where King Harold would stay during the fighting. But to call it fighting would stretch one's imagination immeasurably. The Catholics had sat around the city, refusing to move for almost a week now. At that moment, Harold's assistant ran up to him. "King Harold, sir," he said exuberantly. Harold, a bit annoyed with his enthusiasm, inquired, "What is it?" "Sir, it seems as if the Catholics are advancing." At this, Harold was taken aback, but he quickly regained his composure and told his jester, then told his assistant, "Then ready the troops. They should be prepared to fight by noon." It had seemed as if the Catholics would never attack. They are outmatched in both manpower and in strength. But from where Harold stood outside the city, something felt off. From where Harold stood, nervous energy crackled through the air. Men were drinking and singing songs, ranging from songs of praise to songs of a final farewell. And for Harold, the energy was unbearable. He reached at his belt as he had done so many times before. And all those other times, he had been fine. There was no reason for him to worry now. And he still did. Harold grabbed his sword, a weapon reserved for the higher class, a weapon he sheathed with pride. In his offhand, he grabbed his conch horn. He put the horn to his lips and blew. From the horn blew a low, ominous note, unlike any other horn. The sea of humanity surged forward, screaming and yelling. And Harold smiled. Caught up in the excitement, he dropped his horn, drew his axe in his offhand, and charged into battle. For a Viking, there was nothing like the rush of a fight. A nervous, chaotic energy coursed through Harold's veins as he charged into battle. And the men fought bravely, throwing axes and throwing themselves into the enemy lines with no regard for self-preservation, just for the outcome of the fight. Harold took a second to turn back and examine his troops. He was enamored with the size, the might, and the power. But the more closer he looked, the more his concern grew. The men behind him were wearing a uniform. The uniform of the Catholic Army. A sense of dread washed over Harold. He stumbled backwards, lightheaded. He turned back to the front line, but the outcome wasn't any better there. The Vikings littered the floor and Catholics advanced further. He turned to the palace. If he made it there, he would have a chance. He ran to his horse, but in the blink of an eye, an arrow was fired. Harold turned his head and saw the arrow. He attempted to lift his leg, but his cumbersome, heavy robe prevented him from doing so, and he was hit. But there was no time to dwell. He mounted and rode away on his horse. It was near sunset as Harold made his way through back alleyways to the palace. Citizens stood in awe to see their king, tired, wounded, sloughing away from a fight. Harold exited the alleyways into the street in front of the palace. He hung his head as his horse trotted up to the gates. The gates all opened, as usual, almost as if in anticipation. Harold looked up from his horse. Standing on the steps, with arms crossed, was the English leader, Harold Godwinson. He smiled. Harold felt a pain in his chest, and he fell to the ground as a tear fell from his eye.